Coming up on Verse, Chorus, Verse, Part 2, Kurt Cobain, 1994. Oh, he dead. That's next.
What the fuck? Yeah, this is the pick-me-up episode.
Well,
The sun would set and we would come alive. We could go all night.
welcome
It's
to
gonna be
Verse
all
Chord-
smiles in the sunshine.
Welcome to Verse Chord Bear. Welcome to episode 211 of Verse Chorus Verse. I am DL. I hope you are doing extremely well. I hope you listened to the last episode, got sad, came back, and now you're about to be happy.
What's
Because
wrong
we
with
are
you guys?
all going to be super, super uplifting and great.
Not sure how that's going to hapen.
How it's going to happen is me, god damn it. And I'll
Yeah.
start it with evil.
Evil.
Might as well jump Jimmy. Evil.
That's happy.
Put on some Van Halen and rock out. How you doing, my man?
You know, so much better. So
Are
much
ya?
better.
That 5-minute break really cleaned things up for you?
You know what I'm going to do right now?
Huh.
I'm going to turn on Jump by Van Halen in my ears right now.
Okay,
I'm
wait.
having
I
such
actually have
a
to know
hard time.
from Evil, Jump, like that
Yes.
song in particular, out of the whole
Yeah.
Van Halen catalog,
Yeah.
how does it rank compared to the rest of Van Halen?
Oh.
Ooh.
Jump.
Just
How does
that
it
song.
rank?
Because to me, Jump
The song
is
where
like
there isn't guitar?
roller
like
dome.
at the whole
it was like the
first-
song that was like free skate.
Here's the thing. I don't know.
It's really good.
I can't think of another song that has put me in a good mood as many times as the intro to Jump.
That's fair.
It's very fair.
But it's so much more than that. It's like the bass underneath, and then the keys come in. Mr. Van Halen knew how to write good stuff.
You heard him talk about bass and drums and keyboard. He's Svend. He's
God.
here. He's Svend Mouthwash Knutsen. Svend, how you doing?
I need to just shut my mouth for a minute, I think.
Sure, fine.
Nah.
But I'm
Where's the
still
fun in
drinking the
that?
mouthwash from like 3 episodes ago and chasing it with beer from this episode.
Oh, I get the mouthwash joke now.
There it
I
is.
didn't
Yeah.
before. Okay.
Rumpelminz and Jaeger.
Sorry about
Rumpeljaeger.
that.
Rumpeljaeger.
Yeah, I get it.
Recommend it. Best drink, all y'all.
Never-
Everybody, if you want to have the best drink you've
Oof.
ever had in your whole life, ever.
You never go full Rumpeljaeger.
Also with us,
Yeah.
you've kind of heard her. She just said yeah, so you
Hi.
did hear. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, it is Rachel.
It's Rachel.
It's Rachel living with polio.
I didn't want. No, okay.
I know.
The old podcast.
That was good.
No,
Oh my
I'm not
God.
gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. It is Rachel. If it's 27 Club, it's Amy Winehouse polio. Rachel,
Oh.
how you doing?
It is.
Well, you
That's
that
okay.
doesn't have to be sad. Like
27
you
Club?
like her music, right?
I love
Can
the
everybody
music.
stop being fucking sad about this shit?
Hi,
My
you
God.
just said 27
About
Club,
dying?
buddy.
Dying is...
Everybody dies when they turn 27.
Do you know how much good shit we got out of the 27 Club?
Sure.
Hey,
God damn, everybody. We're talking about Kurt Cobain. The last episode, a little dark, a little conspiracy heavy.
little.
That
Were there any non-conspiracies in that episode?
It's also really fucking fun to talk about for some of us, but that's okay. We can talk about other things, and that's what we're going to do in this episode. Kurt Cobain, who did pass away in 1994, left us quite a fucking legacy. And here's how I'll start it. For people of our generation, for people of the... It's actually not that trendy of a pick to have as like a favorite band or that sort of thing. It's too easy. You know, it doesn't work.
Sure.
And to be honest, because of that, I don't listen to Nirvana that much. And I'm probably not alone in that. I would imagine that a couple of us, at least on this, are the same way. Maybe it's because they have a small discography. So everything they've played, I've already heard 100 times, that sort of thing. Maybe Nevermind specifically is very overplayed. But guys, for fuck's sake, listening to them all week this week has been amazing. And
I have a question. Muddy Banks is the Wishka.
Yes.
Is that something that any of you in the research
Of
leading up?
course.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. Many of those songs are also on albums, right?
Uh-huh.
Could we do a Muddy Banks discussion at some point? Because, okay, here's the thing. I feel like that is the one album that captured a lot of the magic of what Nirvana was as a band.
Oh, okay.
In its most
Okay.
completeness in one album. It wasn't everything that they were, but it was the closest I got to like one release that you could purchase that represented that band fairly well.
Well,
as far like if you
what
didn't know
was it about
Nirvana, if you didn't know them, or if you knew them kind of but didn't know anything other than like what the radio played, the versions of the songs that were on that album to me came across very genuine, very I feel
I was
like
gonna say
that's
pure. It feels like it's like
yes.
authentic.
Yes. Like that's how I think the band would have wanted us to hear them.
I like it.
If they were like putting together a thing to like, you know how on Spotify now you go and if you type in like a band or an artist, like you scroll down past their all their releases and everything, and there's like the radio stations, and it's like and one of the radio stations, like the first one is like, this is name of the artist.
Yeah.
Right.
Muddy Banks the Wishka, I feel, is the Spotify this is Nirvana.
This is Nirvana.
It's a good middle tweener into what I was saying, which is basically that studying for this, it's hilarious because we all know how like Nirvana was the biggest band of all of our time.
Right.
Evil is a little bit. I'm not. I'm not trying to be a dick. Evil. It's just you're a little older, and because of that, you did get Van Halen, for example. Which I'm not saying you got. I know you're not Van Halen 1 old, but you know. And
Well, I was alive when it was released, but
yes, yeah. But what I'm
lived through it,
trying to
though.
say is that because it's the easy pick of the great band, none of us really considered it the great band. I am saying after studying for this, and I have my favorites, I have my Alice in Chains, I have my this, and I have my that. I guess I'll say it like this. I will never fight anyone that says that this is the greatest band of all time.
Ooh.
That's what I'll say.
That's fair.
Rachel, studying for this,
Yeah.
particularly, look, no, I won't even say particularly. We can just treat this as a fucking Nirvana off. Who gives a fuck? What were your thoughts going into studying for a band that you were drenched in your life? You know, that you're kind of told from a young age that, like, this is one of the greatest bands of all time. What was it like studying for this?
I kind of mentioned this last night to you, and that is that this whole year, the nostalgia has been overwhelmingly painful. It is really, and, you know, I question all my life decisions, sort of wish I could go back sort of thing. But like it's, you know, we're talking about something that happened 30 years ago that we remember fairly clearly. And that is a huge thing, and kind of a painful thing to say is like, oh yeah, 30 years ago, I remember exactly where I was when we all found out that Kurt Cobain had died. Like, it's been really, really painful, and kind of like, and not in like a super dramatic sort of depressing way, but like kind of depressing to like, not just the subject, but like 94 in general, of revisiting our youths, I guess. So this was a hard study on for multiple reasons for me.
I can edit this out or keep it in
Yeah.
because maybe it's good content, but is it more personal, or what is it that's negative? What is it that's painful about it?
And it's not negative. It's that, you know, and not to get all etymological on you, but part of the word, like nostalgia, is longing and pain.
Yeah.
Like the Greek etymology
Actually
of it
knew
is,
that English major. Yeah, thanks.
you questioned me last night, so here we are. It's painful, like, because I feel like at this point life is going so fast, so there is a little bit of longing.
Oh yeah,
for,
you done. Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I get
Yeah.
it.
The double middle finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets both.
Evil. This might be projecting. So tell me, you know, I'm a fucking idiot.
you're a fucking idiot.
But thank you.
It's true.
Wow.
I feel like you would have been one of the guys that I'm sure you like Nirvana, but I would think that maybe they weren't out of the
Your
bands
jam.
that came out of Seattle. Maybe they were your 5th favorite or something like that. What was it like for you back then and coming into it studying for this?
You're right. They weren't my go-to. They were everywhere, but they weren't my go-to. But if being like the rock music fan I am, if I was like distilling decades down to a single band, personally,
Oh, God, that's good.
60s Beatles, 70s Zeppelin, 80s Van Halen, 90s Nirvana, 2000s
Oh.
Yeah.
Queens or Jack White. I don't know. That's a hard call. That's, but it's like the up to that point, it's like no brainer. Like they are definitely the 90s band. They are the distillation of
Sure.
90s music. Just as much as Van Halen is the
Goddamn, you
distillation of 80s,
crushed
that.
70s is
My
Zeppelin,
God.
60s is Beatles.
That was a well-tailored take, my man. That's going
Dude,
on
so
the
many bonus
fucking
points.
Instagram. Yeah.
I will say though, like, it's a distillation of a specific taste. I agree because I also have the same taste.
If you're talking
But
rock
yeah, yes,
music,
I know you get what you're
if
saying.
you're talking rock
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
Rock
I don't
music.
see another answer for the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, like honestly.
Right.
Or just the most influential band of the 90s, whether they're your favorite or not.
The only band, and I don't know how you'd fit them in, and I think that's what you're absolutely right. You're completely right, Evil. The only band that I feel like there's a disservice they're not having in there somewhere is Guns N' Roses.
They spanned decades.
Just
Is
be-
the thing. Is there an 80s, 90s band?
It's
Yeah.
just, it's weird because they are the ones that changed.
Yeah, those cusp
fucking everything.
bands. I mean,
Yeah.
Van Halen really, like the good Van Halen, it was a 70s, 80s cusp band. But
I respect you for admitting that there's good and bad Van Halen. I respect
I'm a fan of it all. It doesn't mean it's all good.
Dun,
yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
But
Sorry.
Careful.
We're going to have to pay for that.
here's the thing about Guns N' Roses. There are few imitators of Guns N' Roses. There are some, but it's not like
Yeah.
everyone's trying
do
to
it.
sound like this band. Everyone tried to
Sure.
sound like the Beatles. Everyone tried to sound like Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Everyone tried to sound like Van Halen. Everyone tried to sound like Nirvana.
Fuck, that's good. Svend, I am going to get to you after we talk about the most important part of the night. What are we drinking?
Alcohol.
We have not done that yet.
We have not. Sorry, guys.
Feels like we've done
we're
that
on
twice.
Yeah, I know. It's been a
Because we've
long
been drinking for a while.
fucking night.
Svend.
Let's start with Sven's Mr. Mouthwash. What do you
Hold
got?
on. Let me see if I actually have anything interesting.
Anything left is
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm yep,
Spins
yeah.
magic cooler.
So I moved
Oh,
on from
he's
the
got a pub beer.
mouthwash of like Rumpelmints and Jaeger, which I don't recommend.
No,
it.
we're over that. No, I'm
Yeah,
bleeping
we're over
all
that. I'm just trying to wash it down with pub beer. Like this is just the
pub beer.
cheap 10-barrel
10 barrel.
pub beer. You get 18 of them for like $16, and
That's a deal.
that is what I'm trying to use to get the taste of Jaeger and
Rumpelmints.
Rumpelmints out of my mouth.
Rumpeljaeger.
That's where I'm at.
That is where you're at.
I mean, this is going to be very anticlimactic. Other than that, because
That's what
I'm
she
just
said.
I'm going to take a stab at it. That's also what.
She might have said it.
He said it.
Rachel, are you drinking BBR?
Yeah.
Still,
Am I drinking Coors Light?
Yeah.
still.
Evil, are you drinking a little Michter's?
Michter's American Whiskey.
Yeah.
One of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Whiskey.
Everybody. Hey, look,
God, I feel like I need to
guys,
run
we got-
upstairs and grab like a bottle of tequila and just chug.
I don't think
like,
that's a good
half
idea,
of it
Sven.
All of a sudden, just because,
Maybe
like, I
just
feel
look.
like you don't need me for this one. I'm just gonna just like get bombed and be the color
commentator?
commentary.
I love it. We've got the American 10 barrel. We've got American PBR. We've got Coors Light.
America.
Sam Elliott would approve. And we've got Michter's American Whiskey. Look, it's an American booze for an
America.
American band. God damn it.
Yes. America.
We're going to have some drinks and we're going to talk some Kurt Cobain. We'll take a break. Everybody, we're back.
That was a long break.
Evil.
Mouthwash
Yes.
tastes like shit.
You only get to keep one
Ooh.
for the rest of your life. What are you taking? Unplugged or in utero?
In utero.
Yeah.
Well, and not even a
Not even.
thought
No.
there.
That's my favorite
Wow.
Nirvana album. Has been since it was released. Probably always will be.
Can I
Yep.
can I buy you a bowl of ramen? Like,
Yes, please.
I buy you a beer. Like let's
I thought you
hang
guys
out.
were pho buddies. What are you
Yeah.
doing buying him
Pho.
ramen?
Okay,
Ramen?
let's go get some pho.
Rachel, do you like ramen?
I
Do you wanna
love,
be
fucking
ramen?
love ramen.
Ramen's so
Let's
good.
be ramen. Their pho buddies will be ramen. We'll be ramen respectables.
Respectable friends.
Rachel.
Respect.
That's salad.
Rachel?
You don't win friends with salad.
Nobody gets friends.
Actually, no.
over
I'm going to
salads.
Svend. I'm asking you a different style
Oh my God.
question.
Oh shit.
Kurt Cobain's performance.
Mm-hmm.
Which album is the best? Any of the Nirvanas, including Unplugged. I'm talking Bleach, Nevermind, In Utero, Unplugged, Incesticide.
Like I like a little while ago I was talking on Muddy Banks of the Wishka. Like if you want studio albums, never mind. I'm so biased because the producer because as far as like what I've heard captured on audio, what I'm like my favorite of Kurt is Muddy Banks of the Wishka.
Rachel,
Yeah.
what's your favorite Nirvana album, live included?
I think it's unplugged. And I say that because I like live Nirvana. I think Kirk and everybody does better live than they do recorded. Maybe it's not my favorite song choices out of, if I was to pick song choices out of an album, but performance wise and what I think really embodies the spirit of Nirvana, I would say that it would be unplugged.
I'm sure you have all seen this, but we got to bring it up. At one point, there was a live show where they insisted that Nirvana play to a backtrack of Smells Like Teen Spirit. And Nirvana proceeded to do the most hilarious
Yeah.
automated bullshit performance that anybody had ever seen. It's one of my favorite videos of all time. We all know this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that encapsulates why Kurt Cobain
Yeah.
was. There's such a fine line between a brilliant, amazing artist and a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
And Kurt was so good
Rode that
at
line.
writing that line. He was so good at it.
Yes.
Anybody else does something that's kind of like that, and it's probably going to be pretty fucking douchey. But Kurt does it, and goddamn. And not just Kurt, all of Nirvana. You see Dave Grohl in the back, like a fucking automated monkey. God damn, it's fucking hilarious.
You know what? The best part of that is it's Top of the Pops. It's a British television show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of like the old crash test dummy commercials. Like, do you remember?
Yes.
Is it you could learn a lot from a dummy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go to Svend. Svend, do you have a specific moment in time that sticks out to you as the punch you in the gut moment?
To punch me in the gut.
Evil just died.
I'm listening to I forgot about his singing on the Top of the Pops. There's like he's singing the low voice like this.
Oh, gods. And he's like sticking his mouth on the mic.
Is there anything better than sarcastic
All the
Nirvana?
lights out.
Oh my god.
There wasn't like one specific time. I think Nirvana for me was a band that by the time it got to me, because of my age, right? Like I really fell in love with them 96, 97. So obviously like radio and MTV they weren't pushing the singles anymore. It was kind of weird. It was like a backwards journey into Nirvana. Some of my favorite performances from Kurt were like the weird one. On Nevermind, when Butch had him just sit on the couch, right? Underneath
okay.
the bridge. There was no fall off of his voice after the mic.
He sounds like he's in a fish tank.
Yeah, or just like literally like whispering into your headphones. Like, I love more the theatrics than the music. You know, like when they would wheel Kurt in on like a wheelchair and like a hospital gown. Yeah. Like some of the things that he would come up with live that were just...
When they would play Aneurysm live.
Right.
Holy fuck. That's the other thing that people don't see anymore, that you don't see anymore, is they would beat the fucking shit out of each other, out of their instruments, out of like...
How many times they destroyed Dave's kit? How many times Kurt's guitar went up in the air and just like... on the stage, you know,
Chris knocked himself out.
Yeah. Oh man, that's right.
Threw that bass up and
like,
it just like
KO'd him on the
noggin
and just like out cold.
Yeah.
The time at the age I was at got me so like, this is what rock and roll is. This is what rock stars do. My hero.
Rachel.
Yeah. So, suicide note. We're just gonna rewind for just a second. Kurt talked about how he feels like he doesn't feel empathy. That was like kind of an issue for him. There's an interview that's everybody has seen where they're talking about the price of concert tickets. Mm-hmm. And they say, Madonna's charging how much? And then he goes to his manager.
$50.
How much do we charge? And it was like $21 or something for a ticket. And the way that he reacted in a way of like, how can you make your fans pay this much to come see you and to come listen to music? You shouldn't have to pay this much money to see your favorite bands. And in that moment, he was really empathizing with the fans, even though he really felt like he couldn't relate, and he was so separated from them. That's a moment that really sticks out for me. It's where it's like, he's a musician that actually cares about his fans.
Mm-hmm.
They lived it too. Like when they went on that In Utero tour, they didn't do fucking stadiums.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam gets all the fucking notoriety for in the 90s when they tried to fight Ticketmaster and do what they were doing and play big places without doing Ticketmaster. Nirvana just said, fuck it, we won't do it. We'll play fucking college venues and said, we don't care.
Yeah.
Nirvana lived that. They really did. I'm not talking shit about whoever decided not to do that. Money's money, and Nirvana already had plenty because of their album sales, but still.
Empathy was, depending on how you believe he left this earth, that may have been his signing off.
I think he was murdered.
Peace, love, and empathy. Like, he recognized that was something in his life that was important that he wanted.
Kurt Cobain. When did you decide that you kind of liked him?
This is probably after when I actually was like, oh, I think I like him, but this is probably way after. But I think I recognized him fully as every generation has like people who are like tastemakers. They're like the ones that like set the tone. And it's him talking about, somebody asked him about Tool's Sober video. And he's like, he's like, it's like such a shameless Brothers Quay ripoff. He's like, it's really neat looking. And he's like, I wanted a Brothers Quay look too. He's like smoking a cigarette as he's doing it. He's like, but that's just so it was like a straight ripoff. He's like, they should have a slap on the wrist for that. I'm like, oh, he gets culture in a different way.
Yeah.
Like he wants to take what came before and turn it into something new. Like he took Pixies and Beatles and mixed them together.
Right.
But it wasn't like a straight rip off of either. I mean, you could.
And by the way, he constantly fucking talked about the Beatles and the Pixies.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. And I think in that moment, I kind of grasped the kernel of his genius of like what he was at his core as an artist.
It's very rare that at a live show, artists are fucking dicks. And like we were talking about Unplugged. the fact that at the before and the end of the songs he's talking about fucking him up, and he's like, that's a David Bowie song, by the way. This is Meat Puppets. Like, artists don't really do that.
No.
And the fact that he was, like,
Self-deprecating.
I didn't. This is Leadbelly. This is not me
Yeah.
playing it.
It's our favorite performer of all time. It's Leadbelly from the 1940s, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Him doing that too in those live performances, I think, was freeing for a lot of people who were musicians, because you got to see, okay, 1994, or by the time I saw it was later, but still, it was like watching my hero, the person who, like, I believed was the greatest. I believed was like this supernatural, as a kid, superhuman rock star at that time. And then, like, hearing him say, yep, I'm definitely going to screw this up, this next song. And then you get through that song and be like, okay, this one I'm definitely going to screw up. For a musician who was filled with insecurity and self-doubt, watching someone who was my hero at the time express that publicly on MTV, like, I'm going to screw this song up. Unknowingly, I think Kurt helped a lot of
That was kind of
people.
one of the Kurt Cobain things, one of the grunge things, one of the things of back then is,
It's like permission to not be perfect.
and it was kind of the things have overcompensated, but back then it was the losers that was the whole reason that Nirvana got huge.
Right?
It was kind of the misfit toys sort of thing.
It was
You know what I mean?
postmodern before we could define postmodern.
Rachel,
Yep.
a resident lyric face. Do you have a specific Kurt Cobain lyric?
I feel like I didn't pull up lyrics while I was listening to this album.
Well, in
And
your
so
defense, you can't tell what the hell he's saying in anything.
that was going to be my next point. That I was just like, I don't fucking care. I did get into Polly when we were for Unplugged, which was a mistake. And so why look at any lyrics after that? But
No,
the
but
fact
let's touch on that.
so Polly was written after there's a gentleman, that's the wrong word. There was this
That's the wrong word.
There's this fuckhead
Serial
that
killer.
raped and killed a 12-year-old girl, went to prison, supposed to be in prison for 75 years, got released early. Handful of years later, kidnaps a 14-year-old girl, rapes her, tortures her. She escapes. And this song, Polly, is written from the perspective of the perpetrator, right?
Yeah.
And so that's dark as shit.
Well, that's the story fucked Kurt up, like,
Yes.
for a long time.
And in that way, I listened to this interview that was talking about how he was kind of running out of ideas of stuff to write about. And so, but he also felt like pulling stuff from books or news articles or whatever was kind of not his work.
Cheating.
But in that case, yeah, it was kind of cheating. But in that case, like you said, it was something that really, really affected him. And having it be from, Washington was kind of a huge thing for him.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people don't understand the lyrics because they're not listening to the lyrics and do not understand how incredibly intelligent and thoughtful Kurt was when he was writing.
Did you
Imagine how much that pissed him off.
When you,
Well, did you hear
I
the
don't
story
know-
about the executive that? So when they were trying to decide on a record label, they were in a meeting, and they were talking about their demo with an executive who was talking about Polly, and said that he really related to the narrator of Polly because he thought it was more of a male chauvinist song.
sure.
But it's, you hear, like, there's an interview with Dave Grohl where he's talking about, like, yeah, we heard that guy talk, and like 2 seconds later we're like, okay, we're fucking out.
Yeah. But like watching interviews with him, he was an incredibly thoughtful, intelligent human being. And
Yes.
so there's where there might be good lyrics and there might be like, whatever lyrics. Everything was put together. Every word was put there for a reason.
We're going to take a quick break, and then I got a very important question for Evil. Yeah, it's going to be Start thinking about it, Evil. Even though I haven't told you what it is yet. We'll take a
man
break.
sigh.
We'll be right back. That song's fucking tough, man.
Waters for closers.
Cookies are for closers.
Coffee, dipshit.
Cookies. Coffee? Oh, it's coffee.
You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch. We are back.
You're back.
When Nirvana was
we've been
inducted
here.
into the Hall of Fame, one of Kurt Cobain's idols and friends gave the speech to induct. Evil's favorite band's frontman, Michael Stipe of REM, said the following. Nirvana defined a moment, a movement for outsiders, for the fags, for the fat girls, for the broken toys, the shy nerds, the goth kids from Tennessee and Kentucky, the rockers and the awkward, for the fed up, the too smart kids and the bullied. We were a community, a generation, in Nirvana's case, several generations, in the echo chamber of that collective howl, and Allen Ginsberg would have been very proud. Evil, here is my question to you as a jacked and tan man who I know was a bit more of the, on the small town jockish side of things, but I also know was a very open-minded individual who was very philosophical. I would imagine that there is an ethos here that there's a little bit of duality there. And I am very earnestly, extremely intrigued of your thoughts as someone who people probably would have thought would be kicking the shit out of these kids. And in fact, is probably more of a fan of them. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Basically, for a band like Nirvana, did this represent something that you loved or that you thought was a little bit... was there ever some sort of feel for a changing of the guard that made you uncomfortable at all? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I'm like thinking about how to react to that. It for sure was a changing of the guard. It was I bought Smells Like Teen Spirit on cassette tape single. Because I didn't have a CD. This was a pre-CD player. I had the single I can't remember what the B-side was. Because it's like, what is this? This is something completely not like anything else that I'm listening to right in this moment.
Yeah.
Which is probably some hair metal, like fucking Warrant or some bullshit like that, which I still love.
Yeah.
But I mean, Nirvana was like, there is nothing like this being played on the radio right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to kind of address like me as a human in those formative years, when I was a senior in high school, I was, how they have like best dressed or, most athletic or whatever like that. I was voted by my peers most likely to wake up Sunday morning in a gutter, which was like
Wow.
party animal in parentheses.
Oh.
Here's the thing is like, if you were to ask like the actual party kids, the stoner crowd, the cool kids, if I was like a huge partier, they would be like, no, of course not. He's like the jock who gets good grades and does sports and is in choir and does that stuff. If you were to ask like the preppy kids who were primarily like LDS, like Mormon kids about me, they'd be like, oh, he's the worst, but we like him because and so I didn't have like a place.
So
I didn't
what
have
you're
a category.
saying is you related to this
Yes,
more than
so
Yes.
much.
I love that so much.
Way more than you would expect. Now I had my core group of friends and who like I was very close with, but in terms of like the stereotypical cliques, I didn't fit in any of them directly. I was like the center of the Venn diagram. That's what I was. And so I didn't have
Same with me. Do you know why, Evil? Because I had parents that weren't around in alcohol, so everybody just kind of came and drank.
I guess to like kind of put a bow on
You
answering your question.
didn't take offense to that. You understand why I asked
No,
that,
no,
right?
no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Like I had 1 foot solidly in 80s movie villain jock.
Yeah.
Like that was 1 foot was there, and another foot in like the unknown, I guess. Like I'm a nerd. I'm in fucking choir. I do all of this other stuff that is completely not in that other area, and open to what is new and exciting and creative and counterculture. So at the same time as I was like in love with all of the peak sort of fall of the Roman Empire era of hair metal, I was loving the new, like I've always talked about the N of one bands. Nirvana was an N of one. They really were, even though they get categorized in grunge. They were an N of one. They were the same as, Jane's Addictions.
Nevermind
or
is
the Chili
not a
Peppers,
grunge
or
album. That's a fucking rock album.
yeah, it is. It's a pop rock album.
It's
Yeah.
a pop rock.
Yeah, it's a pop rock album.
Rachel,
Yeah.
a lot of your basis of your musical influence and listening at a young age goes through your brother. Was Nirvana played in your household?
A little bit, yes.
Was it discovered more through yourself or more through your
I'd say like maybe 20% of it was through Vincent. And the rest of it was, like I said, I was literally babysat by MTV. And so I, in that way, like I really got in there before Kurt died and heard about him and listened to him, only, I was too young to be buying that type of music. My parents probably would not have been entirely cool with that. But Vincent, who was a couple years older than me, he got away with it and that was fine. But the whole generation, I mean, like we've said, like there's so many people that kind of fit into that category of people that would like Kurt Cobain and would like Nirvana, in that like people that really just didn't fit in. And I feel like the 90s were a great time for people that did not fit in. And so just a huge influence. And nobody, I mean, especially in high school, junior high, for the most part, unless you're Jimmy, evil Jimmy, then you don't feel like you fit in really anyway.
Oh, evil Jimmy. And then rounding it off, now that you're super old,
How did you get older than me?
I just did.
it just happened.
Super by being super old.
I'll put it like this. After studying for this episode, have your thoughts changed in any way on Kurt Cobain? And does he mean any more or less to you, not in the zeitgeist, but in your own personal history?
I mean, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, having Kurt be so vulnerable at Unplugged showed a very human side of him. And I think as kids, when we look at adults try and hide their flaws so well, or so much that you don't really see how flawed adults are as kids. You don't see how much your parents are fucking up and how much your teachers are actually drunk at school. And I think as an adult studying his life, there's a lot more empathy that you feel for him and for everything that happened around him and to him. And so in that way, I feel like all of our perspectives probably changed because we're older and we understand a little bit more what he was going through.
It seems
he seems like a human being
Exact-
and not a rock star.
It seems much more normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sven, kind of the same question as a person who was extremely drawn to Kurt for specific reasons. As an older man now, as a family man, how has his legacy changed for you of recently?
I wouldn't say his legacy's changed for me, because for me his legacy has always been at least the consistent parts. Like, I've always viewed Kurt as an empath. I feel like gone out of his way in his art to be a voice for people that don't have a voice. Even if it's like poetically, not literally. I feel like a lot of what he speaks about in his lyrics come from a place of the underdog or of the struggle against something bigger, or the feeling of frustration with a system that you have no control of, or being the person that's not in power.
Yeah.
And I think in that way, I think his music still totally has relevance and a connection. Like, my kids listen to Nirvana. Like, Foo Fighters and Nirvana are two of their like biggest. You ask them like who their favorite, surely one of the two of them will mention at least one of those two, right? Nirvana, Foo Fighters. As an art form, I think the sound, if you're just going from the sonic perspective, there's a lot of things that I feel like just in that way they've influenced rock music to a point that everything that's been recorded and mixed, producers, sound engineers of rock music have all studied the 3 Nirvana studio albums. They know very well how those have come together and how they were mixed, how they were engineered. And I feel like lessons from that have trickled down. I myself, if I'm recording guitars, drums, honestly, like gold standard is still like getting the Dave Grohl drum sound, like the huge drums in a big room, which I don't have, so I can't do that myself here. Like, if I want that sound, I have to go rent a space or rent a studio that has that kind of a space with it's the room with the guitars, the way Kurt harmonizes, like the vocal parts that he sings in relation to the guitar part. He doesn't pick the obvious melody lines. I feel like he definitely he starts out where you think he's gonna go, and then he'll mix in some of these like parts that I would have thought were like the harmony line, but he's singing that as the lead vocal. I think the legacy that Nirvana leaves, that Kurt leaves, is these little like traces, because I feel like all in all their impact is better measured in like the little things that they put in, that they do.
Interesting.
You can still catch bands doing things that I will hear now and tie back to like, that's a little thing that happened in the 90s, that like it's production based, it's subtle, it's, well, I mean, even with the way that Kurt would write, everything was like this metaphor. Everything was poetry. Everything was like, he painted pictures. He was like the Bob Ross of rock and roll, right?
Our resident metalhead. It's a much more simple question for you. Did Courtney do it? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a much simpler question, David. Good job.
No. My much simpler question to Evil, our resident metalhead, is not from the grunge gods sort of perspective. It is, where does Nirvana stand to you in the historical relevance of rock and roll? What is Nirvana to you in the story of rock, basically?
Interesting question, because they 20, 30 years later stormed to the top of the charts with an ethos that punk tried to do in the 70s. Like, no, I take that back. Punk didn't try to do that. Punk was just punk. Punk was like counter. But Nirvana was counter and just like took off like a bottle rocket. Because of it. I don't think intentionally. Going back to like you asking if like Kurt was the last rock star. Man, I almost want to like change my answer, because I said I hope not, but I want to be like yes and prove me wrong at this point, because it I mean yes, there have been those that have come after that have done great things, like but at that level, is that ever going to happen again for rock music?
I mean, I feel like you have this idea that your rock stars need to like go down in flames and only have a discography of like a couple albums. And then those albums are the best because they haven't had a chance to do money grab albums or just do shit,
be.
you know?
Possible.
Yeah.
But name me a rock star since Kurt Cobain, a real rock star.
Amy Winehouse.
Jack White.
I mean,
No?
I'll throw a good Dave Grohl.
Fuck no. You're all wrong.
You don't get to say. This isn't
get
your
to say whatever I
podcast,
want.
David.
I'll accept your premise in that name an original rock star since Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Everyone who's tried, nobody's reached that level. And it's almost like no one has broken a mold and become something new.
To fit the romanticized rock star mold. It's already been done, so you would just be copying somebody. I do feel like something I just realized in the last 10 minutes, maybe, is that Nirvana, honestly, is more of a punk band than like anything else.
1,000%.
Like, we called them grunge.
They're
Rock,
total
whatever,
punk.
Seattle, the grunge era. That's the Nirvana. They were what they set out to be was punk. Like everything they stood for was punk because it was against the grain of mainstream, against normal thought, against status quo. And isn't that what punk is? And I mean, like you look at influences. Nirvana was like an evolution of punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we never credited them as a punk rock band. We couldn't because punk was specific and dear that we invented a label called grunge. We called them grunge.
I think
But
it was more
what
just
they really were doing was disrupting. They were disrupting the same way that punk bands set out to disrupt.
Well,
that's what Nirvana was.
That's true, but you're confusing or conflating rather, like, is punk a sound or is punk an ethos? And if it's an ethos, then it's absolutely like, yeah, you could say that Kendrick Lamar is punk or, you could associate that with a lot of people, but I don't think sound wise, I think they evolved from punk, but I don't know that that's their sound per se.
Okay, I see that. I'm also very intrigued at the idea of Kendrick Lamar being punk.
I mean, like I said, if you're talking about a way of life and ethos, like disturbing the norm, then yeah.
Because to me, punk has always been lifestyle. The sound came as a result of the lifestyle.
Yeah, but the problem is that we can't cover this. The problem is that
We
revisit
just
this
got
whole
another like
episode.
4 episodes.
the second that Nirvana got on the charts, they're not punk anymore. That's kind of
They became
I mean,
pop.
hey, we already did an episode. No, we already did, or we're already do. We are doing an episode on that in 2 episodes. Okay. So back off. Look, we're about over. You can see from the last few episodes how, even if he's not, I don't think any of us have ever claimed that our favorite artist is Kurt Cobain or favorite album is this or that. But you can see based on these last episodes how much passion is involved with Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and how important they are to the people of our generation.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's going to be, and that's the way it is. Rachel,
David.
give me final thoughts on Kurt Cobain.
I mean, I think you tied it up pretty well. Like,
No, I didn't.
you did. You do good. You're a good host.
job.
They're, favorite rock star or not, somebody we listen to on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis or not. And I don't think anyone's going to fight me in the room, but like, there's no band that was more influential in that time during the 90s than Nirvana. They are in that way like part of the Mount Rushmore of music, whether or not they're part of our personal Mount Rushmore.
Sven, give me some final thoughts on Kurt Cobain.
I love that Rachel just brought up Mount Rushmore because if I had a Mount Rushmore of music, I feel like Kurt Cobain would definitely be one of the portraits featured on that sculpture. As an influence in my own life personally, musically, I feel like I learned a lot through Kurt. Not original ideas from Kurt, right? But like concepts that you can very clearly hear the contrasts of loud and soft dynamics, like how to build a song. I learned a lot of that through Kurt, learning from other people, right? You listen, like, this is why I love Nevermind. I feel like he applied a lot of these lessons so clearly in the Nevermind album, right? That like the space, the silence between notes is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, forever, he's my hero for that. And also like being able to write lyrics that were like such stretches. Like you could take metaphors and really stretch, like make your audience have to think.
Don't let people understand what you're saying. Yes.
Like go back and
Mumble.
like really regurgitate, mumble, but like put things together that make just enough sense that people have to go back and think about it later.
Evil, give me some final thoughts on Kurt Cobain. Evil, sub question. Would you like to eat my cancer when I turn black?
That's racist. What a weird lyric for a weird time.
Yeah.
There's a word that I think is indicative of bands like Nirvana, and it's zeitgeist, defining like the spirit of an era or the mood of an era. And that they were it. They were like, if I think of like in quotes the 90s musically, they immediately come to mind at like first thing. That transcends like, were they good? Were they your favorite? They're like, it's relevance. They're relevant to that time period.
I think with people our age, the term zeitgeist is probably based around Nirvana.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's happenstance. I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's not luck. All I know is that, the story of Kurt Cobain makes him, for me, the most impenetrable artist of my life. You could say very similar things about Lane Staley. I know that's probably biased, but it's very similar. The difference is Kurt Cobain was writing these songs, and he was writing them. The song Kurt Cobain wrote, you cannot deny that they were something else. They were just something other. They were. And that's Kurt Cobain to me. Cobain, after studying for this, I just realized that it wasn't I think there's a little bit of a hiding from Nirvana because it's too easy. It's like liking the Beatles. It's too easy. The Beatles are your favorite.
Sure.
I was as you're like talking there, I'm thinking about like, 'cause I drew like the parallel, like the 60s of the Beatles, the 70s of Zeppelin, the 80s Van Halen. I'm sorry, but 70s and 80s Van Halen and Zeppelin, if I were to distill music to an artist or band, it wouldn't be either of those two for those two eras. But for the 60s, it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
And for the 90s, it's Nirvana.
Yes. That's the only band that I would really compare that exactly what you're saying to. It's true.
For a band. If it was 80s, honestly, it's probably Michael Jackson. If I were to distill, like, it's pop music.
Yeah.
70s, I have a hard time there. I don't know.
We'll just say cocaine. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Kurt Cobain. Svend, Rachel, Evil, thank you so much. I mean, this was fun? Question mark? I got drunk.
I think this was very cathartic for all of us.
This was very Kurt Cobain, is what this was.
Catharsis.
It was very
Right?
Kurt
It was
Cobain.
weird and awkward, and at some points, certain people were probably a little bit too heroined up, and that's just how it goes. all I know is that I love you three. I would never want to talk about this shit with anybody but the three of you. And join us next week because Evil and I are doing our end of 1994.
Tie it up.
Year.
Tie it up.
Get it done.
That's what Kurt said. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. Good
Damn
night.
it.
And good luck.
Wow.
Fucking A.
Come on,
You're
let's go.
horrible. You are horrible.
I wanna stay right by your side.